unedited, raw, unfiltered. Mo's going to share the goods here with us about a new business idea. If you'd like to listen to the finished version of this episode, the post-produced one, subscribe to our show on iTunes, on Overcast, on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It'll be cleaned up and tight for you to be able to download all this knowledge that Mo's got for us. So if you guys are ready, we'll launch right into the actual recording.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
Welcome to Run With It, where we bring you business ideas from proven founders. Each episode, you'll hear a new business idea and the exact steps our guest would take to get started. We're your hosts, Chris Justin
and Ethan Janney. And on today's episode, we have Mo Abbas. He is the CEO and co-founder of Acadium, a platform that matches digital marketing apprentices with business owners. They're disrupting the education system by providing relevant and free training opportunities to apprentices while also helping business owners grow at very little cost. Mo started from nothing and bootstrapped himself from selling landscaping services door to door as a teenager to growing his housing contracting company to $10 million a year by his mid-20s. And now he's building Acadium and changing the future of education.
That all sounds great, Ethan. Mo the lawnmower to tech entrepreneur, but we want to know how we can do the same. Mo, you've got an idea for our listener to upend the mask industry, smart masks. How did you come up with this idea?
Honestly, I was at a grocery store and I had the mask on. I could barely breathe in the mask and it was just super annoying and it looked terrible and it wasn't a natural feeling. And then I was just thinking, man, there's got to be there's tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people right now that have adopted face masks. And in China, in the East, it's actually a very common practice, face masks. And I was looking at it and I'm just like, I can't believe nobody's designed a smart face mask. Like there's this thing that goes on your face for a large part of the day. For a lot of people, it's all day, in fact. And, the face is a very sacred thing. It's the most important part of your body is the face. We have a huge amount of our brains dedicated to processing faces, actually. Specifically, we're really good at processing faces as humans. And you have this thing that's just covering your face. And they're just like disposable, they're low quality, they're not really thought through. And then you look at something like shoes, where it's like, I have a lot of pairs of shoes or like shirts or other apparel, and people spend a huge amount of money to associate themselves with these brands and their style and their functionality. And here you have, and like there's thousands of brands out there all doing like little niche specific things. And here you have like a universal face mask that everybody has to wear. It's a lot of wear. Nobody says I gotta wear a shoe, but I gotta wear a face mask everywhere now, right? So, and I just thought there's gotta be a better way. And then when you start extrapolating that, you're like, okay, well, you design a better face mask that is ergonomic, super comfortable, high quality material, cool. Well, what happens next? What does the world look like if we have to wear face masks for 5 years, for 10 years, or even indefinitely? What does the world look like when, you have these big cities and they're full of pollution that is very toxic? Like in some of these cities, you're like smoking a pack a day just being outside. Right? It's just like, oh, wow, that's a very significant health hazard. And, something like face mask, it covers your face and also your breath. It affects your breath. And there's not a lot of considerations. Again, like people, like if you compare it to something like food, you can go weeks without food. You can go days without water. You can't go minutes without breathing. So what if there's a way that we could get better quality air, but also more utility and style and versatility out of a face mask? And, I said, if I'm going to wear something on my face, I want it to be like everything else that I touch. I want it to be of the highest quality. Whatever comes on my body that I go in public with, I want the best quality thing that I could physically get in contact with. And if I'm spending like, $1,200 or $2,000 or whatever, a couple $100, whatever it may be, on a watch or $1,500 on a smartphone, not on my face, so it's hidden in my pocket somewhere, and it's got a good utility to it. But that was the idea, that's how it stemmed. And then I said, if we
Interrupt you
could,
here for I'm going to interrupt you here for a quick second just to kind of review where we're at. So what I'm getting from you is that, and this is a very interesting perspective, I've never heard it before, that thinking about, my face is sacred, and I do know, as somebody who studied psychology and neuroscience, how much of our brain is dedicated to processing faces, for example. And like you said, that's why it's such a weird thing to have to deal with in these moments. You're hiding some of the most expressive parts of your face. I love how you're bringing these things into the equation. And you told us before the episode that you've even gone so far as to patent something about this idea, right? So you're really passionate about this. I want to switch a little bit and ask you, given all your experience, from selling door to door to building a construction company to building a tech company, what makes you think, like, what are you thinking about how this idea can be a great idea? Like, why do you think it's a good idea based on your experience as a business owner?
Right, it's a good question. There's very few opportunities that come around where you could build very significant companies, where consumer behavior changes this rapidly, and where there's an opportunity that presents itself that people haven't really quite gotten, they don't quite understand it yet, right? So the opportunity that I see is not just in a mask design, but it's in a wearable device that you wear on your face. This is very valuable real estate, extremely valuable real estate. And if we could design a mask that is really a piece of technology, it's not a fabric, although fabric is an important part of it, but a piece of technology that you can put on your face that feels great, that everybody wants, like it's a hot commodity. I see smart mask as a wearable platform, right? Like, how you have a smartwatch now, right? I mean, that's like, now it's actually multi-billion-dollar AirPods, which is a $20 billion a year business for Apple. Really big business, right? That's like hundreds of billions of dollars of valuation just in AirPods and in the Apple Watch. And then when you see this new behavior come about, and then you start asking yourself, what if you could build a smart mask? And what does that mean, though, right? So like, you could imagine, in the design that I patented, how it works is there's a nose piece and then there's a fabric piece. And the nose piece is where all the technology lives.
I think I want to get into that, exactly how it would work, but I am coming back to this problem definition. And I think that the listener may have an unanswered question in the back of their head, or an objection, at least I do, which is, how do I know that this behavior is going to persist in 2 years, right? Most people did not want to believe that the pandemic would last as long as it has. And personally, even I have a hard time imagining that people are still wearing masks a year from now. And if you're investing all of the money to research this highly technological device that your market size is going to compress by 95%, let's say there's still people wearing masks in highly polluted cities across the world, but not everyone would be wearing it. How do you think about that risk?
How do I think about market size? Yeah, so I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. One is you look at the East and in China and in Japan, where this isn't a new thing for them. Before COVID, everyone's wearing masks. You go outside, you wear a mask. So just the market in the East, which is a very stable market, has shown that masks persist. It's going to persist in the East. It will persist for sure. It has before COVID. They've had significant SARS outbreaks. There's a lot of concerns with the high density in cities of diseases. So people are very cautious, and they would just wear masks everywhere they go. It's normal. It's not like in the US for people rioting and like they want to wear masks and like there's a really big deal happening. But forget about the East for a second. If you look at just the West, there will be a subset of people that will be continuing to wear masks even after the pandemic. Pandemic is not going away. There's going to be another pandemic, another pandemic, another pandemic, not quite maybe a pandemic, but there'll be a lot of situations where there's a lot of awareness now with people about diseases and how easily they spread and the damage that's done. And And why don't people like wearing masks? Because they're horrible. Who wants to put this nasty thing on your face, right? Like, it's crazy. I don't want to do it. Why would anybody want to do it? So, but imagine
I'm thinking of some interesting things here. Like, well, first of all, you're making me think of a lot of things I never thought of before, just about masks, about the face, about breathing, which I love. There's a lot of directions you can go. I guess we'll get into those things later. But one of the things that you didn't mention explicitly, hospitals, like, they got to wear masks all the time for various reasons. And the hospital is already like this cold, disinterested place where everybody's like, I'm going to go to the hospital and that's where I'm going to die. And it's going to be, it's not going to be cool. It's going to be cold and there's going to be beeps and it's just this foreign area. Like, why not just one more thing to make a more personal experience with your doctor, even, for example, right? Is there a way to make a mask such that doctors don't look like some weird, like the same as somebody who's cleaning out soot from a chimney or something, right? I mean, they could look like somebody's friendly. So I don't know if that's part of the plan, but I think that's very interesting way to think about this. And also, just in terms of breathing, I love that you brought in this factor of like the breath being so important. And I know I look at my watch and it'll track my heart rate, right? And there's different apps that are trying to track your brain waves and things like that. Water intake. I don't know if a mask could do water intake, but I've always thought that's a hard one to track. But yeah, your breath, to track that kind of thing. Like, how is your breath going? That could be a very valuable thing. A lot of people are interested in knowing what their breathing rate is.
Yeah, exactly. And when I think about the applications utility, I don't think anybody really thought that they needed an iPod, because there was a Walkman. There's people like the Walkman, and nobody really thought they needed a cell phone. There's regular phones that exist. Like, so I'm not sure that this is something that people. The key thing is, when they see it and the utility of it and the beauty of it and the effectiveness, they're going to want it. And when I say smart maps, I mentioned breathing, but it's actually, the key thing is audiovisual. Okay, this is a platform. So you have a camera on the mask, you have a microphone on the mask, you have a speaker on the mask, you have these other sensors on the mask. Why is this a key thing? You can imagine just wearing around your neck, click it up, now you're masked, now you're getting clean air, okay? But now you also have audiovisual. So you could be with your family at a park or in a hotel or whatever, and you want to take a photo or a video, and it's done. It's boom, it's just boom. You're recording at that point. You could be in a riot. You could be with a police officer. You could be seeing something that doesn't look right. And instead of whipping out your phone and like, it's there on your face and it's just on and you're recording. Nobody really it's just there. It's always there. The audio and visual is always available to you with the mask. And it follows your direction, right? So like, you're not going to it's a perfect angle to get vision out of, actually, is where your face is. And that's super interesting. Like, who would have thought what would be unlocked by putting a camera on a smartphone? Like, it's like, oh, I can do phone off. I have a big camera, big deal. If it's on my phone, it's always available. What does that really mean? Look what's the value that's unlocked, right? Or you can imagine like having a mask and having a speaker where I speak into my mask and then it translates into another language in real time. I'm having a conversation in Spanish, speaking English, right? And then vice versa, it's picking up the audio in Spanish, and I have my AirPods and they're synced to my mask. And then it's picking that up into my AirPods as well. So I can have a conversation in other languages, right? Or there's just so much of these little applications. You can imagine an app store for the mask, right? Where there's a lot of apps that can be built audiovisual.
I'm struck here by how different this idea is at this point, how different from current behavior everything that you've outlined is. And it's clear that you can, I'll use the word visionary, like you can see that can be a future and you can relate it back to how things have changed in the past. I guess how do you believe that this idea is going to happen, and how do you not get caught up with all these other presumably crazy ideas that you may have that are just very different from what exists in the world?
Yeah, well, when man, like, look, you're gonna have like, I've been in sales and marketing my whole life and building products my whole life, really, right? And it's just when you're presented these options, where you can have like a cheap disposable mask that destroys the environment, sure, people will opt for that, fine. You could have a reusable cloth mask that's like everybody else, that has no personality or real functionality or versatility, or just there's nothing really cool about that. Or you have the smart mask that's like silk on your face. It's a beautiful cut design. Again, because this is a piece of technology, you can invest a lot more into it, right? Like you can build like a smartphone, something absolutely incredible, right? It's beautifully, like it's such a beautiful piece of technology. Piece of silk on your face, drapes beautifully, has this like audio visual. You can speak, it has this functionality to it. Man, it can even change your voice. You can be speaking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Because there's a microphone on it. You have a lot of fun with it. But when people see that, and I have my mask and they have their mask, and this is like $200-300, and I'm walking around to school every day with a mask. I'm going to work every day. I got to wear a mask. I got to wash it, right? So you can imagine having a system where you charge the mask and then it cleanses it every night, so you don't have to wash it every day. It's with UV light, let's say. Um, and
I think that's one of the interesting things about it is it's got built-in virality in a way.
Yeah,
People
it does. It's on your face.
People are seeing it. People are seeing how you use it, and I'm picturing. This is getting into some of the tactics here a little bit, but I'm picturing when you buy a Kindle, you can buy a version that has sponsored content on it, right? And if you have this smart device, it's dystopian, but imagine advertisements on it. And it could be even more subtle, right? It could be air quality index of some sort that's just displayed. And everyone around you is like, oh my God, I'm breathing in, whatever ppm of toxins right now. And this is being filtered out by this guy's mask. That would be very compelling.
They'll be curious at the very least. They're gonna be like, what is that? What is that?
So let's talk about a similar idea that has a fraught history, right? And also, by the way, if it's not obvious to the listener, if you're looking for a trend to hop onto, wearables has been expanding. I remember back in 2005 or 2010 when it was just, I went to a wearables convention. It's like, wearables is the future, but it still is the future. There's still going to be tons and tons more wearable technologies. So Google Glass, I was, I'll just say it sounds very awkward. I was a glass hole. I got a Google Glass and I was excited about it. And to be honest, I continued to be excited about it. One interesting thing is I brought it to Peru when I traveled to Peru, and it didn't have the kind of stigma that it had in the United States. So in the United States, it became like this symbol of like, if you're wearing one of these, you're like monitoring me constantly, or you're just showing off that you have enough money to spend on it. In Peru, just people were excited about it. But what I want to bring up here is like, you've brought up a couple of things that the Google Glass had to really struggle with. Now they're still manufacturing it, but now it's more about private industry and not sort of like something that's cool. But your mask seems like it's got some of these characteristics, right? Like, do I want to see that thing if I know it's always filming me, or it could possibly be like catching me in something all the time? And also, is it a thing where it has like a built-in stigma, So I just want to throw these things out there because there's a little bit of precedent.
Yeah, absolutely. Apple there's been a rumor, it's leaked in the last couple of days that Apple's releasing AR headset glasses, like specific glasses, and they look great. At least in the rumors, they look great. I think we're a little past that point because of what's happening in the world. I hate to say it, but there's a lack of trust out there right now. And you got police officers that are just shooting people left, right, and center and not being held accountable unless they're recorded, right? You got situations where riots are happening. You got situations where the public right now has to wear masks. It's kind of a mandatory thing. So a lot of people have accepted it. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people have accepted it than don't otherwise. But I think a lot of it with the Google Glass is the timing was just way off. It was just not the right time for that. It really, really wasn't. And now the timing is a lot better. And you'd have to solve those challenges. Like you can't be intrusive, right? Like you can't. Snapchat tried to do the same. Snapchat AR glasses, the utility wasn't there. No, like why would I
The other
wear
thing
this thing
is,
other than to record, right? Like what
yeah,
value do you have other than that?
the other thing is that people, at least at this point in time, have kind of a quote unquote excuse to wear a mask, right? So it's like you got to wear a mask anyways. So like put on this cool smart mask, and versus the Google Glass, where it's like people had no excuse to put that thing on. Really, it just kind of
Exactly.
make you
Yeah.
stand out in a crowd. I want to make sure we cover some, I guess, action steps. We can start getting into this kind of thing. So, you've already gone to the process of getting a patent on this, and this is interesting. I don't think we've had somebody share an idea that they've said that they patented before. So it's interesting to kind of bring that to the table. So that's a step in your process. You kind of have an idea, you kind of build it out enough to put a patent together. But yeah, how do you get started? How do you launch? Like, who's your first customer? How do you make your first buck? Do you raise money? What are your thoughts on your first steps?
You gotta do nothing if you ask me. Like, so I'm focused on Acadium because the mission of Acadium is very important. And we're trying to provide job training opportunities for everyone around the world for free in Acadium. And as you know, tens of millions of people have now become unemployed, growing every single day. The cost of getting job training is extremely high because it's done through higher education, which is extremely costly, takes a long time. So we had this crazy idea that what if we can get businesses to train candidates for the job market? And that's what we built through our apprenticeship program. And we want to bring this to as many people as possible around the world. So that's my focus right now. It's a social impact company. It's also could become a very, very large and successful company. So I can't actually build this, but if I were to build it, so the first thing was a design patent. And then the next thing is that's it. You put a Kickstarter, a landing page, and you sell it. And then you build a prototype. And if this sells really, really well, you take the prototype, you go to investors, you raise a ton of money, you start building it out at that point. And then you figure out the manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. So you check the demand before anything else. If demand,
we're always trying to get our listeners, although sometimes it's hard and maybe we're asking too much of listeners, but to take action and to take action quickly, right? And I would say that this is one of those ideas where it's like time is ripe, right? We've had other ideas. Oh, start a window cleaning business, start something that's not so contemporaneous. But I love that you brought this Kickstarter idea to the table. It's kind of perfect for Kickstarter, right? It's kind of like Kickstarter is a great place if you have something very quirky and unique that that the early adopters can get excited about and get interested in. And it's also perfect for Kickstarter if there's not that audience for it, right? You put your marketing together, you put your page together. You don't have to spend. You can spend nothing up to maybe $5,000 or $10,000 putting together like a cool video and like a pretend version of it or something. And if it flops, it flops, and you kind of just move on and create another version or something, right?
What would you say?
You got to do it now.
Yeah, and building off that, I'm picturing the listener out there who may like the idea and want to do it, but they don't have the fully fleshed out skills to be able to launch this as well as someone like you would be able to do, right? And for them, maybe just putting up the Kickstarter page, they would be more susceptible to someone copying it and stealing the idea, right?
This isn't for the average entrepreneur. Like if you're like, I'm just trying to make some money, this isn't something for you. This is like, I want to have an impact. I want to create a significant company. This could be the next Apple, right? Like you start with the wearable on the face and you build up from there. So this is for really ambitious, driven startup founders who want to have a really big impact. This isn't a cash flow business. This isn't like, let me go and make six figures type of, cost you six figures to get it off the ground, frankly, right? Just like on an MVP version. So yeah, it's not for everyone. It's for people who are ready to dedicate their lives towards that type of mission.
You could have a lot of fun with this up front too. I think like networking with designers, you know, people who do product design or, you know, I can't think of it, like ergonomic design, things like that, building a team of the right people who have these interesting skills, and just like having a lot of fun creating something. What I'm really enjoying about the way you're bringing to it is there's utility is a piece of it,
It's a
but
huge piece of it.
aesthetics and pleasure and, you know, kind of enrichment of the life is also a piece of it, where you can actually, you know, dig into that and enjoy what you're doing, even though it might be a difficult project.
I think you outlined the action steps pretty clearly here, but there's one that I want to dive in a little bit further on. Seth Godin argues that you should call Kickstarter Kick Finisher, because oftentimes the most successful projects on there, or in order to be successful, you need to already have a list of people who are interested in your idea. It's hard to just put up a page on Kickstarter. So how do you think about attracting that email list of people that you could launch this Kickstarter to?
I mean, the product, the design of it is pretty viral. I can show you the design. So I have it designed already, so you can see what it looks like. At least this version of it, but really, like, by the time you finish it, it might look a little bit different. You got to market it like anything else. So how do you market at that point? You create funnels and you partner with influencers, and you know, you go to the right people with a large audience, and maybe you get a video for it, a landing page. You start partnering with some significant influencers who share it with their followers. You can create a Instagram ad and funnel people to the Kickstarter. And if your unit economics are good, like if you're charging like $300 and it costs you like $50 to get a sale, you can just pump that all day, right? And you haven't even built anything yet. Just to get early demand, you don't go too far into that funnel. I think the key thing is this is a viral product. So just the design of it alone, right? It can be so interesting that it'll be something people can talk about. But a lot of the growth, I don't think you're going to get the end result from the Kickstarter. The whole point of Kickstarter is just validation. The end result and the real virality and the growth comes when people see it on the face, and will be curious about it. And you can give it away to celebrities. Like, hey, here's a cool, very high-end face mask, better than anything you have in your wardrobe right now. Your little cloth face mask, little Versace on it. Yeah, no, this is way sexier and way better technology, way better fabric. Because nobody's gonna put that kind of money in just in a fit. Nobody's gonna spend $300 on a face mask, right? No matter how nice it looks, it's just the utility is not worth it. But if the utility is there, right? If it's a piece of technology, they will. The celebrities will put it on. People will see that, and then that's just going to catch very, very quickly at that point.
Now, here's one of my instincts, but I'm curious if you align with it or if you have a different direction. So, like partnering. So Chris brought up this problem of, well, what if I'm not good at Kickstarter? I've never done one before, or I don't have a following, I don't have an email list. I wonder if you can find other people who kind of consistently done kind of cool product Kickstarters. I feel like there's probably a few of them. I don't know off the bat, but they did one, they did another cool product. You connect with them. They already have a list, and they're interested in partnering to kind of put this together and promote it to their list. Another thing I'm thinking is something like Dyson, right? Dyson, during the pandemic, famously, was approached by, a government to create a respirator that they could manufacture quickly. And his company went and they put this together and they developed this really cool respirator, a respirator. Within, a few months, they had put something really cool together. So I bet even someone like Dyson himself would be really enthusiastic and excited about that idea, maybe even interested in partnering. And of course, he's got clout and influence and a following and all of those things. So it's just, I guess it's a matter of how much you want to give away. But anyways, you're nodding on camera here. The listener might not know that, but it seems like you're interested in this. But is that the way you would think about it? Would you seek out partnerships like that?
I mean, like a person like Dyson is probably a great partner, right? Because look, this is an opportunity to own the most valuable real estate on a human, which is their face. Right? You could own that real estate. So imagine the brand that figures that out properly, right? So this is like a winner take all kind of thing because it's a connected device. It's a wearable thing. So it's like, it's not if people are going to, there's no, you can use, you're going to create this market essentially at that point. You're the iPod, frankly. You're the iPhone. You're going to build this market up, and then you own the market. And then if people do wear face masks, guess what? That's your market forever, unless somebody builds a better face mask, but you probably have a really big head start, and you can create some kind of network effect. You can connect the face masks, start creating some kind of network effect if you're really smart about it. And then boom, there's like $100 billion company right there.
I want to ask, I'm going to take a tangent here a little bit. You talked about this being $100 billion company. You mentioned Acadium potentially having a big impact. I checked out one of your tweets. It said, how stressed can you really be about losing some money if you planned on giving it all away anyway? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Stoicism. I read Stoicism every day. Actually, I read every day. It's part of my morning routine. And I share a lot of it on Instagram, actually. So anybody who's listening can follow me on Instagram and get some of that live. But yeah, that mentality of Stoicism, which is that a lot of people suffer and create their own suffering. In fact, suffering is mostly a construct of the mind. So they fear, everyone's living in this fear mentality and saying, look, it made a lot of sense when you could like walk into a trap, or an animal that's going to kill you, or a food that's going to poison you, or a cliff that's around the corner. It made a lot of sense, this fear mentality way back in the day. It's just not the case anymore, right? Like people aren't going outside because they have a 3, 4, 5% chance of contracting or dying first, after they contracted COVID, having a fatal fatality from COVID. But that was like a common thing. You could die really easily back in the day. So you needed that fear, right? So now everyone has this part of their brain that's ancient. And it's still an important thing, but it's not as relevant as it was. And they're afraid. They're always living in fear. And they're like, whether it's afraid of losing money, which is a big thing, right? And for me, the way I think about it is, who cares about it? Like, who cares? Like, frankly, what's the big deal? If you live your life like it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. If you have it, great. If you don't, great. But it doesn't matter to me. It's not tied to my happiness. It's not tied to my identity. It's not tied to anything that I hold valuable. Is something that is directly within my control, not controlled externally, because then you're always relying on external things for your own happiness. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
This is all particularly relevant to Chris, who has recently told me he lost sleep over his poor investment decisions, or actually not poor investment decisions.
Yeah, I mean that's a little extreme.
Let's say just thinking about investments, because actually you've made some good investment decisions, but just having to think about them so much is something that's kind of caused you stress. I kind of see you watching. I wonder if you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why that quote stuck out to me, is that, once you get above a certain threshold in which you don't have to worry about survival, then all of the rest of it is not nearly as important, which I think that's what Mo is getting at here.
And the threshold is not that high, right? Yeah. So it's not that high. And I made some dumb investment decisions, and I wasn't upset about losing the money. I was like, whatever. Like, I'm gonna make more money. Like, who cares? Like, but the key thing that really upset me was the undisciplined action that I took. Because every single time I've lost is not because it was because I was undisciplined as an investor, where I use my emotions and I over bet on the stock, thinking its earnings are going to be better than, and it's like, that's not the way you should invest. That's not the way you should invest. You got to diversify your asset classes across time, markets, and asset classes. But here you went all in on Amazon, thinking that their earnings report is going to be stellar, and you got greedy, so that your emotions make a decision, and you're going to pay that price. And I'm okay to pay that price, actually, because that was my mistake, right? So I'm not blaming the market. I'm upset at myself, my lack of discipline in that regard. So I don't really, I'm a big fan of the process. And the pain is kind of irrelevant, frankly. To be honest. Pain is just kind of like, where am I doing things right? Maybe yes, no. It's just kind of like an indicator of how you're doing. But I don't really associate. I'm not one to shy away from pain. I don't care. I made a lot of money. Like, I made a lot of good investments and made some stupid ones, a lot more good ones than stupid ones, and I'm not an investor, frankly. This is not my core competency, right? So all I'm going to do is just trust the process. Like, I have a few bets that are a little higher, like Bitcoin. I have a decent amount in cryptocurrencies. I made a few bets based on just some insider knowledge that I had that paid off really well. And frankly, that's a good way of making money if you really want to, like, not literally,
not SEC type insider
No,
knowledge.
I mean,
To
not
be clear
insider,
to the listener out there,
Oh, no,
just
no,
a perspective on the industry. I imagine that.
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I invested in Filecoin, to give you an example. And
Sure.
I don't know if you heard of Filecoin, but it had a lot of big names on it. It was really early, and great investors, great founding team. Got in super, super early, and then that one just like popped, after like 3 years, mind you, but it popped. So that made all your returns at that point, right? So that's a good one there. But honestly, the best investment you make is in yourself and businesses you can control. I'm not an expert at investing yet. So my goal really with that is maybe in 6 years, by the time I'm 40, I'm 34 right now, is to become I don't know about an expert, but proficient, let's say. So I know where my money is. So when I have a decent amount, I have a lot more then, but it'll be, I know how that money works. I know how investments work. So when you're dealing with an advisor, which I don't recommend actually, is how it works. Like you can't trust somebody else with your own money. Let me put it that way, right? It's like, if you don't know how to manage your money, what makes you think somebody else is going to manage it well for you? You don't even know what is good or bad at that point. So this is all just like learning. So if you lose some money, whatever, as long as you just are disciplined in your training and in your learning, and you follow the right process. It's all about the process. Pick the right process and follow it and be disciplined about it. And then you will succeed no matter what it is, whether it's going to the gym. Pick the right process. Eat the right food. Rest the right way. Right. And then the question is, what is the right process? What is the right diet? And that's
so I want to ask you, I want to take advantage of the fact that you're here and you talked about, you've talked about this idea. I think we got a lot of information on how to start it, why it's an interesting idea. It's not all on the table. There's a lot there for the listener. I want to take the opportunity that you're here and we were talking about insider information, and you run Acadium, and I want to see are there any trends that you're seeing, like just kind of seeing the way that people are interacting on the platform and the way that work is going, that might be valuable to our listeners as they're thinking about starting businesses, whether it's this one with the face mask or a different business? What's going on with the state of work and learning that you're seeing these days, and where are there opportunities?
I mean, learning is a joke. Higher education is a joke for the most part. Like, who's going to pay $141,000 to go do remote learning online right now in a higher education? It makes no sense. So that system is fundamentally broken, and it's shifting right now. And you're seeing a lot of schools suffering. And you're going to see a lot of schools shut down because of this, because people are not willing to pay that money for the content, which is what it is at this point. Like, if I can't use your pool and your gym and go on all these dates and these parties, I'm not paying for school. There's no value for me. It's not a signal as it was anymore. Work experience is a better signal than a degree is. So there's a lot of changes happening in higher education. And frankly, people are sick of student debt, right? They're waking up. Social media, everyone knows that it's a big con. You know what the #1 degree is in the US? Psychology. You know how many job openings are available in psychology over the next decade? There's less job openings than graduates this year. Where are they going to go? They're going to have to find new jobs, new careers. Where is that training relevant? You ever talk to a psych grad? There's no relevant training in psychology to the job market, right? But here I have this thing that says I have a degree, a bachelor's degree in psychology, plus you need a master's to actually get a job in psychology. So it's not even there yet, right? So why is it the #1 sold degree? Would nobody tell these people that the job demand's not there before charging them $141,000 of money? No, they didn't. Why? 17 years old, man. They're kids. How do you do this to kids, right? So it's just like they don't know. There's what other options do they have? They don't know what they want to do with their lives, and they need to have forward momentum or what they think is forward momentum. So with Acadium, it's like you can get your forward momentum. You can try marketing, graphic design, content writing. You can try SEO, social media. You can get the experience. You can get mentorship. It costs you nothing. It's free. You get trained for free by people like you who are great mentors on Acadium and are willing to train in exchange for this help that they get. So
just to call out this general theme that you're mentioning, and just to make it more explicit, mentorship and facilitating mentorship, whether Acadium is doing it or anybody who's launching a business wants to find other ways, like people need to be connected with mentors. I love this idea personally. You know, I have a background in piano tuning, which is like an apprenticeship, you know, legacy, right? But we weren't even doing apprenticeships very well. You know, several years ago, I started an apprenticeship program in the piano industry. And that's missing. It's like you said, what's better than learning directly from someone who knows what they're doing? And there's a lot of demand out there as Acadium grows to fill that demand, but also anybody that has the skills to even just connect people. You know, if you know how to connect mentors with people who need training, and or even yourself, if you have an ability to train people or show them something, recognize the value in it, right? Would you agree that that's just like a general trend? It's very, if you want to talk about missed opportunities, everybody's just like, they're not seeing it. They're not noticing that, how the value of mentorship, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, there's degrees of learning, and the best learning you could do is one-on-one learning, one-on-one personalized learning, and that's what an apprenticeship is there's somebody with the experience, and there's somebody who's a novice, and the novice learns from the person with experience with feedback and guidance. Okay, so like when I say mentorship, there's like, it's kind of a vague term in a way, right? But so there's specific feedback and guidance. Here's my feedback on your work. Here's a guidance how to do it right. Then along the way, there's a mentorship sprinkled on where it's like, well, how are you doing? How's your life going? Do you know what are you looking to do? I'm like, can I help you in a way? Like that's a mentorship layered on in the apprenticeship model, at least. And it's very, very powerful. All you need is one person to believe in you to change your life. That's it, just one person. So if you get a mentor, this is what we do at Acadium. We see it all the time. People's come in, their confidence gets boosted. They believe in themselves. Somebody believes in them and they believe in themselves, and the whole world can change that way. Imagine that everybody has access to that. Everybody does actually through Acadium. It's totally free for apprentices and for businesses. It's extremely low cost to get that help that you need. And also you can give back to an apprentice. But I totally agree with you that it's a big trend for remote work. I think, everyone is going, like, the general consensus is offices are changed. I know in my own company, I have this beautiful 5,500 square foot office, okay, in Little Italy, gorgeous, one of the nicest offices in the city of Ottawa, and nobody's there. Like 3 people show up randomly, and then I'm just like, man, this is painful. But then I'm like, even a year from now, who's going to want to come to the office every day? You've built your business as remote at that point, so the office will become a nice to have instead of a need to have. And a lot of companies are going that route. You see this in the real estate trends, right? If you follow the real estate, what are people buying? Oh, they're not buying these dense condos anymore. Now they're like trying to get more space, trying to get out to like more of a nature, right? Frankly. So I'm seeing.
I want to call back to your mentors, to the whole mentorship thing, and it might be a good way to kind of bring us out a little bit. Who's been your mentors? Like, can you call anybody out specifically, or just even tell a story, or where you learned the power of mentorship from the other side?
So I've had like people who give me mentorship, like to have a mentor per se, like nobody. I was like, can you be my mentor? This didn't exist. Like, how do you find that person? You go and have the awkward conversation. Acadium didn't exist when I was growing up, right? Just wasn't there. I would love to have worked under a startup founder for a few years even, and I would have done it unpaid, 100%. Give me like a great founder to learn from. Yeah, I'll do it. For sure, unpaid. You tell me what you need, sir. I'm going to be there. I'm going to learn from you. and you're going to network with me, and I'm going to network with your whole network as well. And then I know that by the end of this, first of all, you go to school 4 years, you ain't getting paid, and you have to pay, right? It's kind of crazy. So it's like, well, why don't I just go volunteer that same time with a mentor that can not only give me something much more relevant, I can walk away, meet other people in the companies, I get this opportunity to learn. And so my own personal mentors have just been anybody along the way that I think could teach me something. Like right now, it's one of our investors gives me mentorship. Another one before, some other startup founders in Ottawa, CEOs that I connect with. But those are like ad hoc. Those are like, I need some advice, more like advice.
Well, that's really good information from Sheryl Sandberg's book. I think it was Lean In, or it might've been another book, but it might've been both books, but she talks about how people are looking, they just want to walk up to someone and say, hey, will you be my mentor? And she's like, this is terrible. Don't ever do that to anybody. Right. She says, you get a mentor by being mentorable. You do something that someone takes an interest in and you get a mentor, and they come to you or you meet them and they sort of take an interest in you. So I think what's really interesting about the way that you're putting it out there is like, you took that attitude, you went, you did stuff yourself, and then mentors showed up along the way, and you didn't call them a mentor and they didn't call you an apprentice, but you were valuing that relationship, taking that information away from it in that sense. And they may even be mentoring you, but they're not calling themselves a mentor, but they think of you as someone like a mentor would, wanting to do you favors and help you along your way. And I think it's interesting you're running Acadium, because I think that's part of what drives people like you, and maybe even me, and maybe even Chris. We didn't always have that mentor that you wanted to just walk up and say, will you be my mentor? But we want people to be able to have that, because we wanted it. We wanted someone to just walk up and say, I'm your mentor. I believe in you. I just want to do, so it's great to have a place where you can match with people.
Let's dig in a little more. Let's look at why is it such a valuable thing? Why is it something we strive towards? Because it's about the hero's journey, right? And the journey reveals itself when the hero is ready. That's a key thing. And then to become ready, you have to enter the beginner's mind. So you have to empty your cup. This was really hard for me, actually. It took me a while. And I can get into becoming a technology entrepreneur was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But going into the beginner's mind and the hero's journey, in the hero's journey, there's always a guide. There's always a guide, and the guide is a key figure in the hero's journey. And right now, we've lost these guides. They don't exist. They definitely don't exist in the workplace very often. They do here and there. It's rare. Like you said, you have to kind of like seek them out. We've created a place where it's a lot more intentional, right? Where the hero, which is the apprentice, on this journey of launching a career, gets a guide, which is the mentor, and they go through the struggle, which is the apprenticeship. And at the end of that, they come out more confident, more happy, and with skills they can take to bring more resources back to their family. That is the hero's journey. This is what we've created. This is what you are enabling as a mentor, right? So such a magical, powerful thing, as old as humans themselves, right? Is that journey.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And we've got a lot of great nuggets in this episode, beyond the initial idea, taking things into what are the kind of trends in mentorship, and, what are the things that are in crisis right now in all sorts of places, how to fix them. The hero's journey, very fascinating thing to call out. And also just like a place to look for opportunities, right? We're missing some meaning in our lives nowadays. I think a lot of people are. And it's like, there's other places in the hero's journey where people are missing out. It could be the mentor, it could be the call to action, it could be some other piece. And thinking of your business or your project as a way to kind of give meaning to that journey in someone's life, I think that's kind of a fascinating way to put a business together. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we're coming up on time here, Mo. We've covered a lot of ground here. To the listener out there who is enamored with this idea of smart face masks, or has taken some inspiration from this conversation and wants to start a different business idea, let us know how you're going. Email us at update@runwithit.fm. tell us what actions you've taken as a result of this conversation. That will be fantastic feedback for Mo and us here at Run With It. Mo, we talked a little bit about Acadium. People can go to acadium.com to learn more about that platform. Where else should listeners go to learn more about you?
Instagram, Twitter, at Real Mo Abbas. Real, like the real, and then Mo, M-O-E, and then Abbas, A-B-B, as in Bob, A-B-B-A-S.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the conversation, Mo.
Thank you.
To the listeners, we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
And take this idea and go run with it.
What did you have?
Cool.
Great.
I'll sign us off.